Hey, 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 it's Al B. Shore. You're hanging out with grownfolksmusic.com. Keep it locked. Don't move.
grownfolksmusic.com.
Grown folks, grown nation. Today on our podcast, we have a very special guest who we've been trying to get in the room for a minute, so we're glad he's here today. Platinum recording artist, writer, producer, radio show host. He's the voice of Las Vegas. You can catch his show, Secret Garden Radio, on Power 88. OG of New Jack Swing, Quincy Jones anointed and appointed. Top, that means he's a granddad, y'all. Mr. Al B. Shore. Welcome to grownfolksmusic.com.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience. I am elated that Tony made me aware of your podcast. I'm a fan of your podcast now, and I enjoy the content that you bring, and it's a positive light shed on on the music from the past and today, and all the assimilations and all the interpolations of the versions of music and things of that nature. I mean, you really hone in on focusing on what music represents and how it's reflected from back in the day till current. So continue the amazing work you do.
Thank you. Did we get anything wrong with the Sexy Verses podcast? Did we get it? Did we get all of our info correct? Because now we've got the source on the phone. So it's exciting.
Well, you know what?
Did we get it right?
Anything that you have had a question about, you can actually, being that I'm here on the line, you can ask me directly. But for the most part, I never direct opinions because I think it's important. Because when you give forth an art and something from your heart, and obviously, everything I've done from day one and prior to being a professional published author of music or any type of intellectual property of that nature, I always wanted to bring it organically, so that whatever it produces, the seeds that it produces, I wanted to make sure that people felt it organically instead of trying to direct them. So whatever opinion you have, I'm not swayed either way. I'm touched the simple fact that you do have an opinion, because there are millions of other pieces of art out there that you could critique or praise or just answer the and the above. And I'm elated that my art has been allowed to be a part of your journey and so many people's journey. It's truly a blessing. It's very humbling when you think about it, traveling all over the world and being in different places, countries, area codes, borderlines. And when you arrive, I think the most amazing part with me is, and what's most humbling, is the simple fact that you can travel somewhere all over the globe, and what this music has done is created this common denominator of a ship. It's like a friendship, a kinship, some sort of connection with another individual that you've never physically met, but they listen to your art and they take a journey with you, in addition to having the artwork that you've created from your soul be a part of their daily lives, whether it's childbirth, whether it's school, or you're taking finals, or whether it's a marriage or it's a divorce, or music is significant in that manner, where it marks this very special time in your life, and it marks, obviously, reflected in today's society as it relates to advertising and marketing for major corporations, billion-dollar corporations.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing they do to promote their product? They find a song, and they have a soundtrack to their product, whether it's Cheerios or whether it's Clorox or whether it's AT&T, Verizon, whether it's a cell phone service, whether it's any product. products are related to music, because music, takes you somewhere else and allows you to stop and kind of get lost in that moment. So if it's a good association, I don't want to go too much on the business side of it, but it's people don't realize the most lucrative part of what the music industry represents is the publishing, and then the songwriters and things of that nature, the creators of these intellectual properties, and it's just truly amazing how it's transcended the artists themselves. It just has truly allowed those songs and those, I don't want to categorize it like a catalog, but those particular songs really have meaning to people's lives. I mean, it's medicine. It's nutrition. Music. If music doesn't, I think, and I'm going to give you my approach. Anything that I've created, whether it was a commercial hit or a fan favorite or friend favorite, I approach, working with any producers, whether it's Kyle West or whether it's, anyone that I've ever worked with. Very significantly, we approach each song as though it's a movie. So each song is a 4-minute movie per se, and you have to tell that story within that 4 minutes. Obviously, learning from the greats before me, my counterparts, the people that I admire even today, who I've had an opportunity to work with, from the Teddy Rileys of the world, and I'm saying from the production side of it, Kyle West, Teddy Riley, Eddie F. I don't want to miss anyone, but just so many amazing people that I've learned from, and obviously the Quincy Jones of the world, having the opportunity to work with Quincy Delight Jones Jr. It's a blessing to learn. And be influenced by such greats, and I'm elated that my journey allowed me to, organically find these people, and these people find me, and then my art, was birthed from that, from over the years, whether it's what my mother played on the record player from back in the day, as a child, or, growing up as a small child watching Soul Train on Saturday mornings, or riding in the car with my parents and listening to AM radio, everything from Chicago to, the Eagles to Paul McCartney, so many greats before me, Nat King Cole, Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Michael Jackson, of course, which is probably one of my biggest influences. I think for some reason it's crazy. I don't want to sound too crazy, but I channel Michael's spirit, even when he was alive, as it relates to the musical influence, as a writer, because of his arrangements, his vocal arrangements, the expression that has been given forth by the way he's created over the years. People don't realize, that he's a genius, because you see the final product, and the final product he makes look is effortless, but there's so much that goes into it to be able to create in that manner, and then and sustain the creating over the years, and being consistent with it, because art is, this type of art, especially music, is truly not, and nowadays it's truly not measured by commercial success. I mean, for most it is, but for real, true artists, it's not measured by commercial success, very specifically because most of the records are paid for. Sometimes you turn on the radio, and the reason you hear a song,
exactly right,
even if it's whack, you hear a song
played because they paid
30 times. Well, you'll hear a song 30 times over and over, and the only issue becomes there's an inconsistency as it relates to you hear a Stevie Wonder song, you're like, man, and you just pull the car over and you start to cry, or you laugh out loud, or there's an emotion that's taken from you. And then you hear another song by an artist, and you're trying to figure out, why do you hear that song 200 more times than you're hearing this Michael Jackson song or the Stevie Wonder song or what have you? And I'm not knocking anyone else's hustle, but as it relates to what we are tricked into thinking is good because it's being paid for and it's in your face. So you go into the elevator, you're on your way to work, you hear it in the elevator, you get to work, you hear it on your smart device, you go, you're on your way, you go to lunch and you go to sit down with one of your colleagues and it's playing there, and and then obviously it's like a cage. They create it's like a musical cage. They trap you into thinking that it's good. Because they're going to make sure that it's a part of your life, regardless whether you like it or not. And then after a while, you give in, and you're like, okay, it's good. Oh, this is good. Or you start singing along. And it wasn't necessarily the most melodic song, or
right.
It wasn't the musical content, wasn't something to be desired for. But, at the end of the day, you're singing it and you don't know why. Well, what happens is you were inundated with the business of music as opposed to the music. And sometimes, what happens is and unfortunately there's a generation, and that stretches into several sectors, even television. If you look at it from the standpoint of because of the way the industry works and because of how it's situated, related to, and I don't want to get too technical, but as it relates to analytics and data, things of that nature, Hollywood is now ruled virtually by social media. And I'm not talking about the content of the social media, but if that particular...
Who's watching? How many people are clicking? Who's watching?
Right, eyeballs. So what it relates to is it relates to casting for a particular part. Let's say you have, let's say you have a new artist that, and like I said, I take nothing away from a new artist that, their grind is so relentless that they have 300 million followers or so on and so forth. But then let's say you have Denzel, or you got Tom Cruise, or you have Viola Davis, or someone who was clearly accomplished and phenomenal at their skill set. And then you have someone who may have a larger social media following. Well, they'll get the part over that accomplished because it's a guaranteed audience upon launch of that show, so per se, or that particular movie or that feature film, again, it's the business. There's a business, and it is what it is. But what happens is, as a true art form, it creates a little bit of confusion as it relates to what's truly good and what's semi or what's fantastic
versus what's good. Yeah, right.
So we're kind of ruled by the popularity contest version of true art and manufactured art.
It's a good word, manufactured. The American Music Awards was on last night, and you've got some ties to that. Best New Artist of 1989, and you also did a duet back in the day with the winner of the Lifetime Achievement Award, Queen Diana Ross. I don't think that we've heard the story of how that duet has come about. It's not that you haven't told it. I don't think I've heard it. How did that duet come about? And first of all, how did it even feel to be invited to the party, and let alone win the award?
Wow. I'm a very big fan of vintage music, Motown and Stax and, Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff, just vintage, Nat King Cole, Temptations, true performers. Like when you see New Edition today, the reason New Edition, big shout out to my brothers and any, the reason they are as great as they are and the longevity has just taken over their lives is because they're emulating the greats, but they truly studied the greats. Like if you look at New Edition, all they are is a new, sexy young version of the Temptations. You know what I mean? Groups before time, like the groups who truly performed. It's amazing to see. Like I used to, obviously be on tour and on the Any Heartbreak tour, and I would put on a disguise and I would go out in the audience just to sit and learn and watch. Bobby or New Edition or what have you, just watching their performances and just seeing, because obviously, they gave me an opportunity. I was a kid right before I was on the Any Heartbreak tour. I was a kid sitting in my bedroom watching Video Soul, and watching the videos after school or what have you, wishing that I can be in this, this world. Being able to have a vehicle of expression because I've had all this pent up inside me, just this creativity, and I wanted to write songs, and I really, I wanted to be an engineer, to be honest with you. That's why I went to Center for Media Arts with Eddie F. And, over there by where NYU is, and that was the most important thing, to study the frequencies and study the engineering aspect of it, and I had no idea that the artistry was going to take the route that it did. I'm eternally grateful, but just had no idea. But going back to how it happened, so as I did, there's a saying, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. I don't know if I necessarily understood. I don't necessarily know if I understood that back then, but I was in preparation mode. That's what you always hear me say. Don't let anyone tell you that God is good. The chicken is good. He is truly, truly amazing. And for some reason, I was given this guidance to study, to study the craft and listen to the music and study everything I could study, so that when it was my turn. I always say, another saying is, if you want to get hit by the train, you got to be on the train tracks. And it's just being prepared and being in the right place. I did everything from deliver pizza to carry the equipment to, sneak it up in the studio so I could see this person and that person, and just always had my bag of cassettes, by my side, to be able to present my artwork. But that being said, in terms of me studying the greats before me, because of what I would listen to, on the record player, from what my mother would play in the household. So Diana Ross was a iconic musical god in that aspect. Michael Jackson and Nat King Cole and Johnny Mathis. Those artists were so Al Green. Even the pop artists. I mean, not necessarily pop artists, but the Eagles and Chicago. I mean, that's the music that I listened to growing up, and so that's what I was familiar with. So when I was in the position of being able to make choices and deciding who I wanted to work with, which is truly a blessing, one of the first requests to Benny Medina was, look, Kyle and I put this song together, and it's this, and us being so young at the time, it was, I just wanted to work with Diana Ross. I wanted to work with Al Green. I wanted to work with Barry White. I wanted to work with Quincy Jones. I wanted to work with, Michael Jackson. I wanted to work with all these vintage artists that I grew up listening to. I mean, that was my thing, and trust me, because, my eclectic taste of music is, if you get in the car with me and ride, you'll hear Pat Metheny, you'll hear Wu-Tang, you'll hear LL Cool J, you'll hear Yanni, you'll hear Beethoven, you'll hear Teddy Riley, you'll hear Quincy Jones, you'll hear the Eagles. I'm not limited to what the industry has created as genres on a Billboard chart. So, I mean, you should. I encourage anyone who's listening to this to reach out. There's so much beautiful music. I can go on, from Andy to, in the Middle East, there's Middle Eastern music. There's so many different, and I hate to call them genres, but obviously we're segregated and separated by categories, just for identity, I guess, identity purposes. Right. But there's so much music out there that's amazing. And if you ask anyone who's accomplished or who's been there, you have to mention the name Babyface, Jimmy Jam, and Terry Lewis. Like, these producers are familiar with different cultures of music. What we do as producers, there's nothing really original. There's only 88 keys. So art is something that's learned and from being influenced by other art, for the most part. Like I said, I'm truly elated to have an opportunity to, be a part of the launch of so many careers. I want to go on the record by saying I would never say I discovered this person, because that person discovered themselves. I just may have been, my art may have been a vehicle and a part of their launch, like Usher.
Now, I'm glad you're bringing that up, because I have some questions to ask you about that.
Yeah, this artist that I was was blessed enough to be a part of their first projects and launching their careers and things of that nature. Usher and 112, Tevin Campbell, Monifa, Faith Evans, Dave Hollister. I remember which I need to find somewhere. I have a duet with Anthony Hamilton. He came by the studio. I used to have a studio up in New York, and Croton on the Hudson. Everybody would come by, and it was a breeding ground for launching. Everybody got their work in. Lade, Jimmy Manis, JoJo Brim, Terrence Dudley, amazing producer. It was just, everyone had an opportunity. I had a beautiful studio up there, and everyone had an opportunity. Stevie J was there, constantly, working on projects with us. And then I had an opportunity to, be the vice president of A&R at Motown. So I was able to facilitate publishing deals and give opportunities to writers and singers. That's really all I wanted to do outside of do my own art, was facilitate opportunity for other artists to go forth with their art and introduce it, be the vehicle of introducing it to the world. And then I find myself, doing mixes and working on stuff for material for Rod Stewart, crazy about her, and David Bowie, and just, artists from all over the globe, from all different walks of life. And I'm elated because something my mother embedded into my soul as a very young child. She would say this to me, and I would have no idea. I would just look at her like she had two heads. I'm like, what are you talking about? But I wouldn't say that to her. Get your head out there. But right. I would look at her. But she would say to me, "You're a citizen of the world." I was like, I ain't been outside of Mount Vernon. What
do you mean, Mom?
I said, what do you mean? But I truly understood it as time went on, what she was preparing me for. And, just always telling me, you're a citizen of the world. And it was funny, I guess, because growing up, too, had an eclectic group of friends that were from every walk of life, and at some point I remember living in New Jersey, in a little town in New Jersey, and, riding bicycles. I had a Super Goose. I thought we had everything, because I had my BMX bicycle, my school uniform, and I would ride bikes after I would ride bikes with this an eclectic group of kids, of young people that were in the neighborhood, and it was this Italian kid next door. We lived in these little garden apartments. There was an Italian kid, Anthony, next door. This Irish kid who lived down the street, Brendan Feely. My two Indian friends, they were twins, Nimish and Darmish. Then I had, and then my Raul, my Spanish friend, who, and it was like, but what was great about that is we didn't see any color at that point. It was, those are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
When you see about all the things that are going on in the world today, I don't think anyone's born racist. I don't think anyone's born, that's a taught behavior. Very specifically, it's a behavior that is taught from the household, from the surroundings during your journey. We're not born to hate. We're taught to hate. So, again, a lot of that influence came from, let's say being in their household. So let's say I'm invited to, Anthony's household. His parents say, "Come in, Albert, and sit down and eat a sandwich. You guys have been playing outside, playing basketball or whatever, or dodgeball. Come in and eat a sandwich." And I'm sitting there, and whatever his mother and father are playing in the household, you're hearing that song. That's where I heard Hotel California for the first time. And then I just kept listening. I said, "What is that, ma'am?" "Oh, that's the Eagles, Hotel California." And then they would tell me what the song was about. And then I figured out later. But again, that, just from being in that household and then learning about Bollywood music, from Nimish and Darmish, and being in their home and what their mother, maybe, or father would be playing in the household, because everything was about a radio and a record player at that point. And it is what it is. So you hear all these different influences in music, and that really births, as an artist, what you will give forth in the future.
I'm glad you're bringing up your work as your production work and your work as a contributor to other artists, because really that's my favorite side of you, is Al B, the writer and the producer. And, as we were talking about in the other podcast, I don't think you get enough recognition for that. And I don't think people realize that you weren't just an artist, that your contributions go so far beyond you as an artist. And so it's really important to me that people know that. And I'm glad you brought up some of the names you brought up, because I have a few questions. I have a few songs and people that I want to name, if you don't mind, and you can kind of just tell me a little bit about your experience with these artists. Usher, you brought up Usher, The Many Ways. So how did The Many Ways come about?
Many ways to say I love you, and those many ways there come a time when me to say I put no girls before you. So pretty lady, make up your mind.
Well, I think at that point, L.A. Reid had signed this young man to a record deal from Atlanta, and had an opportunity to meet his mom and then meet this young artist who was just full of fire. I mean, this kid was just truly amazing. I mean, he was already out there, doing shows at amusement parks or what have you, like festivals, like little things, as a young man, just out there, perfecting his skill set and his craft. So, however, laid itself out when he got to the label and he got signed. Puff was obviously the catalyst and the person in charge of his project. And the blessing is that, he reached out to me and said, "B, what's good?" Well, maybe not what's good, because that's more modern. But, "B, what's good? I need you to, put some stuff together for your man. He's a young cat." And this, obviously he remembered my work with Tevin Campbell. So he was like, "Yeah, you know how to get that groove and that melodic, temperament, and that, just that whole infectious kind of vocals and harmonies and things of that nature. So, we need something for Usher. I was like, cool. And I said, all good. I got you covered. I'll make sure I deliver that. And so what was even more amazing was, so they sent me some music and said, you got to pen this one up. This is something we're feeling for Usher. So they sent me this track, and it was fire. I was like, this is hot. This is, So I go into my mode of writing, which is funny. I think Teddy may have a similar story as it relates to writing, because I can't write sitting still, so I have to be in motion. So what I'll do is, if somebody sends me a track, I get inspired. It's traditionally when I'm in motion. So I get in the car, I put the cassette in. That's that cassette, yeah. So I put the cassette in. And then, so I'm rolling around New York City, or wherever I happen to be at the time. Around New York City and driving. And then the music starts to speak to me. It starts to tell me what to write. It's the strangest thing in the world. It just says to me, say this here. This melody comes from here. This, I learned something from Quincy. And if you listen to the Secret Garden radio show, one of the drops, and one of the interviews with Quincy says, he says to me, he says, Al B, we were talking about melody and songs, because most people don't realize it's great that you have this big vehicle, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's about the song. You can have all the biggest record company, you can have the biggest, all these things. I mean, it's a little different now because but
right.
At the end of the day, it was truly about, it's about the song, and it's about the melody. And so he says, Aldi, melody is something that doesn't have a technique or a science to it. It comes straight from God to your ears and your lips, and and I always thought about that. And I was like, Quincy, what are you talking about? and it's so true. It holds true to this day. There's no technique or science to the melody. It's something that you're inspired by, and it's something that just it comes out. And so I just always made it a point to put melody first as it relates to any of the compositions that I've created or been part of co-creating. Melody is everything. And then harmonic melody is a whole nother realm of, creating harmony, like with Jodeci or what have you, or, any of that type of stuff. It's just, that's what stands true to me. It's probably the first thing we learn as children. That's how you learn your ABCs, melody.
Yep.
And, and anything else that the teacher would teach you in kindergarten or what have you, you learn it through a song. And again, that shows you, takes you back to the beginning of our conversation about how. So they sent me the music. This particular song that was sent to me on cassette was from producer Dave Hall. Now, he just happens to be from Money Earner Mount Vernon, so this is more of a special thing for me. And, of course, Dave Hall had his major success with Mary and some of the most iconic artists on planet Earth. So they sent me this track, and I'm like, this is hot. I'm feeling this one here. And then that's where, the song came from, and then we started doing some other stuff. Now, mind you, during that process, I had demo singers that I was working with in the studio on a daily basis. So when we would create songs and create stuff, Love Was Here, So if you listen to that, a lot of that creativity was not, I can't take full credit for that in any way, shape, or form. My demo singers at that point were Faith Evans, Dave Hollister, K-Ci and JoJo. So, a lot of that influence also was from the family and a collective effort. Don't let any artist ever tell you, yeah, I did all this. I hear that from some different people, and I just kind of, keep walking. But at the end of the day, your team is everything.
Right.
Faith Evans is, you talk about melody, a melodic icon. Faith Evans is an incredible songwriter. Dave Hollister, we call them, it's like we would have a term that we would use in the studio called, it's a box of crayons, because the coloring and the navigation and the map that you can create melodically there was only a few artists that can do it. You can have incredible singers, but some just don't know how to create a map. It's very significant. If you hear a song, obviously you hear the totality of the song and you listen to it and you enjoy it or you don't like it. That's how simple it is. But what the singer and the producer's job is to create this map to take you through peaks and valleys and take you through a journey. That's why I told you initially that everything that I do, I approach as a movie. Each 4-minute song, because songs are traditionally 4 minutes, unless obviously if you when you're mapping the song out, sometimes it goes for 8 or 9 minutes. But being at radio for the last 100 years, I learned that you have to have a 4-minute version, a 359 version to play on radio because they're all broken into 4 minutes. So it would be required by the record companies and when you hand in your materials after you finish doing your mixes and your all of the configurations that they ask you to hand in once you finish producing a record. There's a whole science to it. We'll do that maybe in the next interview. But they ask you to hand in all these different configurations and a TV track, the album version, the single version, the radio edit, all those different configurations. But the key to it is that radio edit had to be under 4 minutes. So your fade had to start at 3:49, and 4 minutes you needed to be out of there because that's the way radio was programmed in 4-minute intervals. So, but in that 4 minutes, you must create a movie and you must create something that truly, that completes the thought process, or at least evokes a thought process with someone listening to it, or influences them, or evokes an emotion. But there's so much out there that you really have to know what you're doing. This is not child's play. It's not a game. Like, you have to take this seriously. That's why a lot of people, you hear about beat makers and producers, and so many people throw the term, or it's like using the word friend lightly. All it is basically planting a seed and bringing that tree to life. It's not just coming after the fact and putting some water on it. That's great, because guess what? God got that one covered. He can just make it rain. And I'm not talking about in the club. But, for the most part, like I said, it's just really about the song. The song is key. All the technology surrounding it, all the Pro Tools and Logic and, every bit of technology and outboard gear, every plug-in, all the other stuff is incredible, and that's nice for the effects after the fact. But you must truly have a song to start with to truly bring something to life that's worth it.
You mentioned K-Ci and JoJo as demo singers just now. Is it true that they sang the demo for Can't Have My Man, or is that not true?
Allison Williams, Def Jam.
Right. Yep.
Can't Have My Man. As I have a hard drive like in my head, so I will start remembering. So as soon as I hear the title, I go into the hard drive and I hear the title. That song, I believe I worked on that song with producer Kevin Dean.
Yes.
Kevin Dean, and I remember when I wrote the song, I'm trying to remember, because we always rotated, singers like, sometimes it'd be Dave Hollister, sometimes it would be K-Ci and JoJo, or it'd be Faith Evans, or it'd be Case, or it would be, Yeah, so you know what? I think, and I believe if I'm listening, I'm going to recall and listen again, but I believe the demo was sung by K-Ci and JoJo because we were trying to get that effect. And a female artist hadn't done it yet. So, been on that particular, using those particular harmonies and that very gospel kind of harmonies that we were doing at that format, out of the whole New Jack Swing era. So it was significant that we got it right. And I enjoyed working, at that point, I guess, Russell Simmons being the icon that he is, he wanted to, he was very much, he had the political and the very explosive style of hip hop and rap, like, come on, like people like Public Enemy, just political, but so assertive and so important to culture. Like Russell had that on lock as it relates to like those type of groups. With LL Cool J, where he was so significant as an artist. I mean, is still significant, but in terms of the beginnings of it all, he just honed in on really just having the most significant, the greatest storyteller of all time, Slick Rick. That whole Run DMC, the most influential, probably hip hop group of all time as it relates to, being an influence on all these other genres. It was just amazing to see the progression and the maturation of how it worked, because at that point I think we were all still trying to figure it out, and we were kind of going along with it and figuring it out as we were going along, because there was no blueprint. I mean, the only blueprint that we had as it related to Uptown Records was, I would have to say, was Motown. So Uptown, basically what Uptown was is a blueprint of a boutique version, a boutique label version of what Motown represented. And that's what we were trying to do, with Mary and Jodeci and Al B. Shore and Guy and Father MC and, Christopher Williams and, all the group, Finesse and Quist, Woody Rock, Groove Be Chill, Jeff Red. And we were just trying to create, that boutique version. The Girls, we're just trying to create a boutique version of what Motown represented. And that was our blueprint. I mean, I think Andre would call me, Baby Quincy Jones, and I would call him Baby Berry Gordy, so we were trying to get in that mode. And, Eddie F was just, Eddie F is Eddie F. he was the glue. Eddie was the glue, who was the mature young cat who made everybody accountable, and he was, just so creative, and he was the best DJ in Mount Vernon, and, just seeing, I remember just being in the basement, and I turned one way. Oh, and big shout out, because I just saw this morning, big shout out to Pete Rock. I mean, Peter would come over and sit next to the turntable and watch Eddie create, and just watch him scratch the records, and then he would get up and do it, and then he was like, "Oh, I can do this too." And Pete Rock was there every day. Just it was. I'm telling you, it's the strangest story, like that no one would believe. Just I call it, it's money earned in Mount Vernon. I mean, it was truly something in the water, and just the association, and everyone wanted that sound. So yes, to answer your question, yes, Can't Have My Man. The demo was sung by myself, K-Ci, and JoJo, and that's why a lot of those songs were so incredible. Like even the Tevin songs, because it would be a collaboration. The way just for anyone listening, the way the records were made is we would create the records, create the movie, and then give it to the artist to study. So when Benny called for us to do Tevin Campbell, Quincy wanted us to do some songs for Tevin Campbell. It was myself and Prince, Narda Michael Walden, Mike Monty, and so as the producer, we would create the composition, put it all together, send the cassette, mail it out to the artist, let them study it for a while, and then come in. We meet at the studio, and then and then they would give forth their effort of what they heard. And we would go track by track and just make sure everything was tight, ready to go. And what was most amazing is at this point, K-Ci and JoJo, I don't think we even released they were singing background on some other like Father MC or what have you, or maybe Mary, but we hadn't released, we hadn't finished their project. So if you listen to Tevin Campbell's album, that's actually me, K-Ci, and JoJo still singing the backgrounds. And what I did was I just had Tevin sing over top of, some of the backgrounds because they sounded so incredible. We just wanted to leave them, but and again, Tevin's voice was so amazing too. So we just kind of put him over top of it. So it'd be a collaborative effort. But the most amazing part was when it was time for Tevin to do his, because traditionally we would do the backgrounds first, but to have Tevin do the lead, and both leads, which I think I've given to Tony Gleason, she's actually heard it. And people within our circle, they've heard the original versions of the songs, the cassette demos of, Kyle West and myself, and whereas, and Confused is K-Ci and JoJo, me, K-Ci, myself, K-Ci and JoJo singing the song Confused.
I'm so curious, I need to know. You said I could talk to you, and you will help me and tell me things that I should know. As time goes on, you
I would have to direct Tevin to sing the leads, and I would say I remember sitting there behind in the control room, and this young man was able to do everything that K-Ci and JoJo, because they would alternate. One would, like on the demo, I had K-Ci singing the verse, and then JoJo singing the bridge, and then we'd all be on the backgrounds. But it was amazing because Tevin was able to sing both K-Ci and JoJo's parts and do every run that they would. Now imagine trying to do K-Ci and JoJo runs, and you're 12 years old. Yeah, okay. Tevin Campbell did every run to the point where I remember at one point K-Ci or JoJo calling their mother from the studio and goes, "Yo, Mom, this kid did every run. Say, yo, this kid is incredible." Because he just did it, and then he was like, "Okay, what's next?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? You just sang?" And obviously K-Ci and JoJo weren't famous at that point because nobody knew, but they were just the best vocalists on planet Earth. And between K-Ci JoJo, Faith, and Dave Hollister, like those four. When I first started working and doing producing and things of that nature, imagine having those four, and not taking anything away from anyone else, but having those core four people sing demos for you as you're creating and selling these demos to record labels and for different artists and so on and so forth. So their interpolation was, I mean, people would probably listen to the song and say, "I ain't singing this. Are you kidding me? I can't. What can I do with this? This is done." So. But it was truly the beginning of an iconic era, or the beginning of another iconic era. Let me say that properly. And with these incredible singers, I mean, imagine sitting in the studio, we're just hanging out, sports or whatever. The TV's on in the background. We ordered pizza, and we're just sitting around the studio, just creating and hanging out, playing PlayStation, or I think it was Sega back then, having Sega tournaments, because we'd have everybody come up to the house. We're just sitting around, chilling, kicking it. And, okay, let's go do a new joint. Go ahead. Boom. All right, here. Sing this. And I would have songs like, it would be amazing. I would have songs with, I think it was a song called Price to Pay, and it was Dave Hollister, Faith Evans, Barry White, and Michael McDonald, on one song. Like just you think of it now and it's like, man, like, but again, we were emulating what Motown represented to us, because we just thought of it as though let's just make good music, and there were no, and I don't want to say no egos, but we were more willing to work together at Uptown with each other, meaning that everybody wanted to work together. So, and it was important because then at the end of the day, before we had that conference, of who's picking what songs for what, it would be that. I mean, that's about the only competition, but it was a healthy competition internally because everybody wanted to make a hotter joint. But then there was a guy named Teddy Riley who was just out of this world, and so you had to make a joint. You had to compare something, and I don't even want to call it a comparison, but, Teddy comes in with a joint and it's a rap. And then everybody's like, oh, man, I got to make a joint hotter than that. It's like, which is virtually impossible. But it was a great standard to reflect upon. And, Teddy was such an influence as it relates to the entire Uptown sound. And we all had our different sounds. I mean, Teddy Riley obviously was and I'll say it for the record, the king and inventor, creator of New Jack Swing. Kyle and I had a version I called it adult contemporary hip hop, because we were musical and we had the grimy beats, but we were still musical and went in a little bit of a different direction. Eddie F had his version, derivative of what it represented, and he, with Donnell Jones and that type of thing, like he had, the Untouchables. So he had his version and stuff. So it was nice because there was a foundation there and the genre, of what New Jack Swing represented, but we all had our own versions of it from our territories. Obviously we represented Mount Vernon. Teddy represented Harlem, USA. We just all had our own versions of what we felt from this particular genre, and then what we've learned in the past from music we grew up listening to, and adding this new style of swing to it.
We were talking in the podcast about sexy verses, and our music editor and I, we were talking about the Sexy Verses podcast. And for those of you listening to this, we have a 2-part podcast on Al's album, Sexy Verses. But we were talking about just what you described with so much excitement that it got me excited about the whole collective approach. These teams back in the day that you mentioned, the Untouchables, and the team that you guys had over there Uptown, and just these different, and there's the Underdogs over there, and there's all these different production teams, but these collectives, these teams that just wanted to do what you said. They just wanted to make jam. Like that's everybody is on that page. And I just I miss that whole, instead of, now you hear a lot from artists and what you were mentioning earlier, I, no, I wrote it, I made the beats, but no one seems to see the significance or the benefit of having that collective creativity come together. And for the people listening, you mentioned,
well, there's no more,
Tevin.
you know what it is? Right, there are no
ahead.
more record labels, at this point, outside of you have the conglomerates like Cash Money Records and, the hip hop. You have certain that have maintained that record company style of business, but there are no more, they're not, let's say there are not that many out there again where it was like outside of you see Cash Money, which is kind of, I guess, a big family of producers and entertainers and so on and so forth, and they do incredibly well. So big shout out to Cash Money. So they have it on lock. They have their genre on lock and what they do globally. But there's not that many anymore that you can hear. You used to have, you would have, let's say, Bad Boy, and then you would have Uptown, and then you would have Jermaine Dupri's, Jimmy Jam and Flight Time, Jimmy Jam and Taylor's Babyface, his production. You would just have, and then you would have your team of people that, Rodney Jerkins, another one. Rodney Jerkins was just phenomenal, producer and writer and arranger, but it's just all over the place now. And then what happens is technology has now created a nepotism as it relates to. You just want to put your homie on a joint. You just got to put your homie on a joint, and then he becomes a star. And it's like, wait a minute. Well, guess what? That's the evolution of technology and music. And so I can't, as much as you see so many artists from my genre, hate on it. I can't hate on it. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you can get a computer and create something incredible that makes the world dance, or that makes the world cry, or makes the world laugh, more power to you. I'm with it. Give me some of that, Obviously, I would, any influence that I would have from that, I would have to add some soul to it, because a lot of the music is soulless.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
I was writing. I just started. Finally, I guess I can make the announcement here. I just started my new album, album number 5.
Good.
And so I called up very significant people that I've worked with in my lifetime, and I'll leave them nameless for right now.
Okay.
But major producers who I've worked with in the past, and I called them and I said, "Listen, I'm working on a new album. I know we've worked together in the past. We've rocked together. We've made hits. We've got money together. Or I'm just a fan of your work, and I would love to work with you. Send me something." And then I paused and I said, "Wait a minute, no." I said, "Don't create anything new. Don't go in the studio and create anything new. I want you to go into your catalog, find a track that you were sitting around one day, just around your homies, whether you were in Atlanta, whether you were in New York, whether you were wherever you were rocking somewhere in your surroundings with your homies, doing whatever, and you were creating the joint. And when y'all finished, you said, 'Yo, that's some Al B Short shit right there.' That's the song that I want you to send me. That's it. Don't go create anything new. Give me that song, because music is timeless if it feels good, if it's all about the song, if it's all about the music, it's all about, if you're not, and with me, very specifically, I will tell you from here until I'm gone, I am not chasing anybody's sound. I am not trying to sound like anybody else. Well, maybe Michael Jackson, but only through appreciation, only through thanking him for his art, and then because I'm such a fan of his creativity and the way he structured his harmonies and his vocals and things of that nature. So, and then there's some others as well, but meaning I'm not trying to sound like, for this radio station or that radio station. I'm going to just come organically. That's the only thing I can do. I got to, whatever comes from my heart, my soul, whatever family, friends, associations, my journey, anything that's happened within my journey, you're going to hear in this new album. So, and that's all it is. And all it's going to do is be for a reference to kind of reel it in. The reference would be 2018 version of In Effect Mode. And obviously, I'm an older gentleman now. I'm not 17, 16 when I created the first stuff. So, but it's that same feel. It's that same. And what happens is, as a writer and a producer, and just like all the people that I reach out to send me something, it's the same concept, because we were all influenced by each other at some point. If I heard a Teddy record, I'm like, man, on the low, I'm like, man, I gotta make a joint like that. I'm like, I mean, even to the point where I was just floored and elated at the same time. Teddy called me one day, and he was working with Michael, and Teddy says to me, "Yo, I know I had to hit you with this one because I know how you feel about MJ." He said he was sitting there with Michael, and he said that, "Yo, Mike just asked me." He says, "Well, I want one of those songs like Al B Sure, like those, And I just dropped the phone. I just like, okay, come on, man. I was like, come on, Teddy,
Quit
stop
playing.
playing. I was like, stop playing, Teddy, come on, and that just goes just to say, I'm like, I wanted to say, does Michael realize that he's just hearing himself interpolated through me?
Right.
because all I'm doing is just, it's like his influence is so significant within my artwork that I'm just, so influenced by him that it's my interpretation of what my art is, but influenced by him. So all he's hearing is a reflection of himself, in a different language, per se, in a different musical language. So, but I was just, floored, obviously. But again, you just never know. So that's why I said to everybody, I said, listen, just take something that you, take something that you have in your arsenal that I'm telling you that you were just sitting around with your homies, was, working on something, in your studio, in your environment, and you made a joint that was, and you were like, yo, this sounds like some Al B Sure joint right here, like, boom, and then that's the one I want you to send me. So I've been receiving some really incredible shells. I call them shells. I've been shells, whether somebody just sent me a track or some idea or something. And man, I mean, it's really amazing what people think about you. So when you hear something musically, you can tell that like what song influenced them or something that they really enjoyed listening to from your catalog, and regurgitate it, for lack of better terms, and then they send it back to you and say, this is my Al B Sure influence, Al B Sure, Kyle West, or what have you, influence type of song. And it's it's a good feeling. It's just a good feeling, and then it also encourages the writing and it brings it all to life, and it brings it all full circle. So yes, I've officially started my brand new album, and I'm making no predictions. All I'm doing is giving forth organically from my soul, and that's all I can do.
I felt like that's what you did with Honey, I'm Home, and that is why it is my favorite Al B Sure album. I think it is your best album.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
it did not get the love.
I learned well, I'm not concerned about what it didn't get. I'm concerned about someone like yourself that it did give love to. Because we never talk about what didn't happen. Because you got to realize in the record industry, politics are just what they are. Just like
everything.
If you look around today, politics are horrible. Politics, and think about it. I want you to next time just at random, and I can almost guarantee you that you'll witness this. I want you to turn on to television at some point today or when you have an opportunity, and I want you to watch a politician being interviewed. Turn on CNN, turn on, Fox, turn on one of the major networks, and I want you to, watch one of the political shows and watch the host ask one of the politicians a very significant question, and very significantly watch that politician not answer if they don't feel like it, or start talking about something else. So, Mr. So-and-so, so-and-so, what do you think about the water crisis in Flint, Michigan? Do you think that the administration there should be incarcerated for poisoning the population there, so on and so forth? And then the politician answers, well, as a Republican or as a Democrat, I didn't vote for the tax reform, and the Obamacare shouldn't Excuse me, sir. The question was Flint, Michigan, water crisis. Well, that tax cut as a Democrat, that tax as a Republican. Are you serious? So what happens is it's almost as though they're just in their own reality. And I'm not saying every single one of them, but the majority. It's just, I have an agenda, and that's it. And whatever you ask me, you can ask me about a water crisis. You can ask me about a religion, about, freeing the kids from UCLA, who got into the situation in China. And then I will answer you whatever I have written down prior to the interview, because this is what I really wanted to address. So it doesn't matter what you're going to ask me. It's just amazing. And then, or you see the whole planet, you'll see the whole planet in unrest and taking over the streets and rioting and so on and so forth. And then you hear someone within the administration going, you see how happy America is? Everything's going fantastic. So, wait a minute, what gravity are you living in? Like, which planet are you speaking of? Like, what, you like, wait a minute, they're setting things on fire in the street. They're unhappy about what's currently going on within the political realm. And then you see the person get on television. Wow, people are so happy about the deficit and the employment. See, the employment rate is up. Like, which world? Like, what version are you watching? Old videos on VCR? I mean, like, what are you watching? Like, this is what's going on right now for real. But everybody has their own reality. And again, it's just amazing. I mean, I don't know how we got into that part of the subject, but it's just seeing. Well,
you were talking about the politics of the industry, and when I went to mention that the album didn't get love, and you have a great perspective on it. Not worrying about the love that it didn't get, that the fans and the people appreciated.
Right. You know what? Yeah, I am just no longer concerned about commercial success as it relates to my artwork. Because I've created a body of work that has had the commercial success. So if it does in the future, I'm elated. That would be wonderful. But I know that I'm still giving forth my art organically. So a true artist, that's all they're concerned with. A true artist is not concerned about, well, let me make this for pop radio. Let me make this. That's when you start to water down, and that's when you lose the soul of the music. And that's what we're experiencing now. Not from all artists, but from a majority of the artists, is that they've lost the soul. And I'm not talking about categories like soul music, R&B, or pop. I'm just talking about the substance of music. Very significantly is lost because, the politics have really confused people. Like I said in the beginning, you hear a song 1,000 times because, that somebody had deep pockets to make sure that song played 1,000,000 times. So when you get in the car, you get out of the car, you go into the store, you go into the restaurant, all you're hearing is that song. So you really start to think that song is amazing, or it must be something, or it must be significant. So, and then you become confused, and then you start questioning your own music acumen as it relates to what's good and what's not good. But then you have to. I have a formula for that. Anyone who's listening, if you start to get confused, there's one reference that's really simple. If you start to get confused about what's good and what's not good, go to your collection, if you do have a musical collection, or just go to YouTube and type in Stevie Wonder Songs in the Key of Life. You listen to it, then compare everything else to that. And then you start to say, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? You know, it's like when you get out of the brainwash moment. You know, throw on, you know, a Smackwater Jack by Quincy Jones. You know, put on some Earth, Wind, and Fire. Put on Tribe Called Quest. Put on, put on a Heavy D record. Put on, you know, Mr. Big Stuff. Like, put on, you know, put Marvin Gaye on. Just go back to that, and then say to yourself, okay, I can breathe now. Because that's what it is. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not even including myself in the process, because all my music and the things that I've worked on, you know, whether it's with Kyle West, as we're just influenced by Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson and Donny Hathaway and Quincy Jones and, you know, even, you know, Teddy Riley. You know, I have to say Teddy Riley's name in that same sentence. Just the geniuses and the prodigies prior to us releasing our artwork to the world. I mean, any artist influenced. I'm sure Beethoven was influenced, you know, and forgive me for not having that accurate information, but obviously he was influenced by somebody in his life.
What's your definition of grown folks music?
My definition of grown folks music is this podcast, grownfolkmusic.com. My definition of grown folks music, music that marks a significant time in your life, invigorates, evokes emotion, music that is a part of your journey and will forever be a part of your life's journey, no matter what's going on in your life currently. It marks a time, a very special time, and grown folks doesn't mean old. Grown folks doesn't mean old school. Grown folks means this composition is significant to my life.
30 years in this industry, some ups and some downs. Who is Al B. Shore?
Who is Al B. Shore? Well, Al B. Shore is celebrating 30 years since the release of Night and Day in 2018. So Al B. Shore is very humble, elated, true to the word artist, and also a character. Al B. Shore, very much Alfred Brown on a daily basis from those who know me. I'm interested in philanthropy. I'm interested in making a significance, making a difference, I want to leave here and my kids, or I can't call them kids, they're grown men, saying, wow, my dad made a difference. My dad, brought some lives together. My dad was a good guy. My dad was a good father. My dad made a significant contribution to the art world, which is something that he spent most of his life doing. So I would say, that's Al B. Shore in a nutshell. The artist that wants to create platforms for other artists to express their art form, and do it organically, not be controlled by genres and labels directing a sound. If you're a true artist, it is what it is. That's why we may not hear a lot from D'Angelo. D'Angelo is a prodigy, genius. He's doing the art because he loves what he does on his own terms. And that's what you love to hear. An artist, and that's why I don't, same thing. If, back in the day we had, these major labels that, it was a very big machine behind the artist. So again, it just happened to be a very good time because what we were bringing forth was good music influenced by studying the greats. So we had these big machines behind us just reintroducing great music through new young artists. And it was perfect timing. That's why the significance of the genre, I mean, the timing and the generation was so significant. And now we are not significant to the labels per se because we're not going to sell Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus numbers per se, but the music is just, if not more significant. And this is why the digital footprint for, let's say, what New Jack Swing represents is so significant globally right now. And I'm into the analytics of it. It's so significant globally because, again, as I said, on unsung and repeated on many occasions as it relates to, doing press interviews, there's a generation of women starving to be told, I love you again. So they reach back to this music, whether it's Al B. Sure, New Edition, Tony, SWV, Teddy Riley, Guy, Blackstreet. It's that music that celebrates us and not degrade. It's not degrading. So, I pray, and then I want to put into the universe my plea for it to continue and for people to continue to support it and really, call your radio station, let them know, hey, you know what, we want to see the Any Heartbreak tour one more time. I'll be sure Bobby Brown, New Edition, let's get, I want to find something to do for grown folks. I want to be able to get dressed up and go to a concert and enjoy it like we used to when we used to put the cassette in and we can listen to it from the front to the back and we would turn it over and we knew every song. Now you get a project and it's just one song. Mm-hmm. Just one song, and it's like, man, that $14.99 is no joke. I don't know how much the albums cost nowadays, but if you spend that $14.99 on an album, I want some artwork. I want to read the lyrics. I want to, that's why we like physical product in the generation. So if we even get a CD, if it's not vinyl, but we get that artwork and we look at it, and it'd be so nice. It's like, wow, the pictures and the lyrics, and you really get to connect and engage with that artist that you admire. Come on, are you kidding me? I'd love getting a Babyface CD and opening it up and seeing and reading the lyrics. I mean, Babyface, one of the premier lyricists of all time. I mean, just phenomenal. I mean, outstanding. So it is what it is. I mean, do what we can instead of us talking about, how horrible the nature of music is today. Just do what we can to keep the music that we love alive, by purchasing the music and showing numbers. I mean, we have an opportunity. Just go on YouTube every day and listen to Al B. Sure, Marvin Gaye, New Edition, Smokey Robinson, just go in there and listen to the music and get the streaming up as much as possible. Just go listen to your favorite artist or go to Pandora. I'm elated. I just discovered, my Spotify. I have, on Spotify, and I have almost 200,000 people on Spotify, and it just goes to show you, people just love the music. I mean, it's not about Al B. Sure. It's about the generation and what we represent. It's not just about me. It's about Keith. It's about Bobby. It's about Teddy. It's about Steve and Russell Hart. It's about, then the list goes on, just keep representing that this is significant. This is something that's needed. This is our nutrition. This is our spiritual nutrition. So let's leave the opiates alone and let's stick with the organic nature of what this music represents and what it does for us as a people.
This is the time you get to shout it out, Al, and what that means is just let us know how we can follow you, how we can get at you. You can talk about all of your social media platforms where we can see you. You can talk about Secret Garden Radio and iHeartRadio at this time, and just all things Al B. Sure, so that the people listening who have not seen you or don't know where you are can get at you. Go.
Right. I have a philosophy, a saying, and something very, very significantly live by. If you're not in charge of your social media, you won't be allowed into the future. So, for the most part, I plan on being here in the future. So, so you can catch me on all formats: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, official Al B Sure, official ALBSURE. Also, Periscope.tv would be official Al B Sure. Instagram, official Al B Sure. The only one that's different, actually, is Snapchat. I do have a Snapchat. I haven't embarked on Snapchat, which I know I need to get with the program. But Snapchat is Al B Sure Official. It's the other way around. And then you can also find everything. You know, realistically, I think it's the easiest thing to do is just go to albsure.net, and everything is right there. Big shout out to Tony Prez Gleason.
Shout out.
Big shout out to Tony. Big shout out to Tony Gleason. What a godsend of a human being.
Angel.
What an angel to our organization, to us as a family. But all of the incredible digital media presence that you see from anything related to Al B Sure is created by Tony Gleason. Just all the bells and the whistles and the collaboration between Tony and I on a daily basis, keeping, and it's very significant because what artists don't realize is that, I don't want to do Twitter, I don't want to do so on and so forth, but it's significant as an artist to stay connected with your family. I don't like to call anyone a fan or what have you. Your family, your family, your musical family, all over the world. So it's very significant to do so. And Tony has been a very significant part of that representation. So big shout out to Tony Prez Gleason. We call her the president.
The Prez, yes.
Miss Perez. But yeah, and everything is right there on albsure.net. So, all of the social media, the official social media, also the brand new video. If you go to secretgardenradio.com, that's secretgardenradio.com, it's a few surprises. Well, you'll find a brand new video there of my youngest king. In fact, I got to shout out my kings, Mr. Devin Loud, Lil B Sure, and at Quincy. I got none but love for you, gentlemen. Continue to strive and continue to take over. The takeover is in process, and Dad is so proud. Continue making it do what it do. In fact, my youngest king embarked on a remake of the 1988 release of Night and Day, and his version is called I Can Tell You Night and Day 2.0. You can see the brand new video at secretgardenradio.com. Also, while you're there, leave me your information. It's very significant that we stay in touch. So there's an opportunity for you just to leave your name, maybe an email, and some information so that we can stay socially connected, so that anything that I'm doing all over the globe, you will get an announcement, or, we can stay connected if you're interested. And I'd appreciate that. Just leave me information there. And everything's right there at albsure.net. So, there's a lot of fictitious URLs that are not my official ones. And thank you for the ones that, that do appreciate the art form. So, but yeah, everything should be right there. Let's see. Secret Garden Slow Jams Morning Edition via the iHeartRadio app, 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Eastern Standard, of course, it's 8 a.m. to 12 noon. You can just go right on any of my social media to find out and click on the link. I make it pretty easy for each of the formats because I provide the direct link to click to watch live or listen live, so you can be engaged at any given point. And then the night show, Secret Garden Radio on Power 88, live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. We call it #Vegas Strong and #Mount Vernon, the number 4 life, Mount Vernon for life. And I thank you, Kimberly, for the opportunity to be invited here and rock with grown folks. And thank you for your format. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for being patient. We finally made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And also give my best to your partner as well. And Ivan?
Yes. And we've got some other team members, but yeah, he and I were on the podcast, and so I'm sure he's going to be grateful for the shout out. And don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back.
Absolutely, and like I said to you, it's always easy to find me. Just give a shout out to Tony Perez Gleason, and we will make it happen. And then if you're ever in Vegas, just let us know, and we will all get together and break bread.
Absolutely.
GrownFolksMusic.com